Będziemy mieli tylko informację, która już teraz.
One day later.
Cześć, witam, dzień dobry. This is Mike again. Today I would like to talk about the outcome of the 2025 Polish elections that just took place 2 days ago. I want to give you my analysis, my personal 10 reasons why I believe presidential candidate Rafał Trzaskowski was unsuccessful in punching his ticket into the presidential palace. So why don't we just jump into it? Number one, I think Rafał tried to be the jack of all trades, but in fact it worked against him and he was the master of none. What do I mean by that? During his campaign trail, I think he went on and tried to appeal to everybody, centrists, leftists, conservatives, and I think his message became rather diluted over the long haul during his presidential campaign. And I think a lot of voters became skeptical, especially ones that might have been leaning on the fence about actually voting for him. I think his message came off rather diluted, and in the end, they didn't know what exactly he stood for. Number two, and the biggest thing that I believe might have hurt Rafał Trzaskowski is actually his absence in the countryside and in the rural areas. He did a lot of campaigning. I believe he put a lot of emphasis in urban city centers, bigger cities here in Poland. I've been to many cities in Poland. I would say you would be very hard pressed to not find at some point some type of farm, some type of field, growing some type of agriculture, vegetables, fruits, cows, livestock. Białystok is on the east. This is basically bordering Ukraine. So this would be the far right conservative side of Poland. Warsaw, the largest city in Poland, Lublin, Łódź, Poznan over here. Poznan is basically the California of Poland. So this region that has probably about 500,000 people, 75% of the citizens here voted for Rafał. So he basically has a stronghold on Poznan. Stettin, this is closer to the German border, so that means it's more western, so it'd be more aligned with the European Union. Gdansk, a very big city. Wrocław, very liberal city, a little bit larger than Poznan, so I would consider it also to be very, very liberal, very left-leaning. Maybe, again, not left-leaning, but maybe centrist leftist. So he basically hit the urban populations, the highly densely populated sections of Poland. Number three, also, I don't know how important this is, but Rafał Trzaskowski actually wanted to roll back some of the social policy programs for Ukrainians residing here in Poland because of the war. Obviously, we know about this in Russia and Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. Poland right now, at the moment, they have an 800 plus benefit program for everybody who has a child. So basically, if you have 2 children, 1,600, 3 children, you do the math, 2,400. Okay, so here's another publication. This is the Kiev Post. So this is basically a Ukrainian publication. Poland on track to cut benefits for Ukrainian refugees. So this is what I was talking about with Rafał flip-flopping. While support for Ukraine is not in question, welfare paid in Poland is. So again, I don't know what you think as Americans, but would you pay, let's say you have some refugees coming in from Mexico because they're having their own civil war, their own battles, their struggles, maybe between Mexico and El Salvador or Venezuela, and we take in a bunch of immigrants or migrants from Mexico. Would you want to support them financially? So I would say this is where Polish people are very unique because a lot of people that I know personally took in Ukrainian refugees, and I thought it was a really beautiful thing. Today, we still need to support Ukraine. However, we cannot make the same mistake as some Western countries such as Germany, Sweden, where it was advantageous to come only for social benefits, says Trzaskowski. Rafał is basically saying here, hey, we can't make the same mistakes as Germany, Sweden. So in fact, whether or not he's flip-flopping on it or trying to take another stance in opposition to peace, this is actually a very conservative position. So do you see how the politics work here? A leftist is more of a conservative in the United States, at least on this particular policy. Trzaskowski proposed a fundamental change that would allow Ukrainians to receive benefits such as 800 plus. This is a child benefit program, but only if they work, live, and pay taxes. That's pretty common sense, right? Tusk responded to Trzaskowski's proposal on X, saying that it would be urgently considered by the government. So he's saying, hey, if you put this policy forward, maybe we can punch that through quickly. The already submitted peace proposal limits the 800 plus program to families who work in the country, pay taxes, Peace Parliamentary Leader Mariusz Blaszczak said, I'm sorry, butchered that name. In response to Trzaskowski said, it shows that sometimes they have a bit of common sense. He accused them of copying his ideas despite the peace proposal apparently coming first. You see what I'm saying? So this would be the equivalent of Donald Trump saying no tax on tips and Kamala Harris going right behind him and says, hey, I'm going to implement this program too. This is why, again, one reason why I believe Rafał lost, because he is not trustworthy. He pivots a lot. He's not really grounded in any one thing. He's trying to please and satisfy everybody. So a lot of people, in my opinion, I believe they saw this as a political move, and it wasn't really rooted in sincerity. As I said, Polish people aren't very flexible. Once you start to draw a line in the sand and you say, this is the policy I'm going to stand on, Polish people, no offense, are rather rigid with that, which I understand, but because words do matter. So when he kind of flip-flop on this particular policy, I believe a lot of people just saw it as a pivot to try to just gain favor with voters out there, any voter that he can gather. Number 4, I believe, was his weak stance and position on border policy. If I'm misspeaking, somebody please fact check me. I'm not here to deliver news. I'm here to give you my opinions. In my opinion, I believe he did too much flip-flopping. I think he was doing a little too many 180s on a border policy. On one hand, they're saying we should be more stringent on illegal immigration. And despite whatever you might think of Poland in general, either party, the border here is really strong, is very secure. So here's where I believe Rafał had a problem. We can see this article is going back to 2015, as you can see here. So this is old, 10 years old. So this is here. He added, we are clear. First, we have to fulfill the commitments we made, accept 2,000 refugees. This is the problem with being a member of the European Union. In certain instances, European Union law supersedes that of the national country. The leaks from the European Commission were referred to in Edam FM, that's the national radio station, by the head of the Office of Foreigners, Rafał Rogala. He said that we need to sit down again and talk about the number of refugees accepted by individual countries and not start the discussion by saying Poland and the countries in Central and Eastern Europe are egoists and do not want to get involved in the process. He admitted that Poland is open to migration, for example, to Ukrainians. From what I understand, Polish people are more accepting to Ukrainians because they feel their culture, their religion is more in alignment with theirs. Whereas if you talk about people coming from African countries, then you're talking about a whole different can of worms. I think this number is a typo, 830,000 visas last year. That says something, 65,000 applications this year. I don't know if they're specifically talking about Poland or the European Union as a whole. Also says something, as Rogala stated, Poland has a plan in case of crisis. We have a variant for 5, 20, 30,000 refugees, he added.
What do you think is the priority for Poland?
I mean, you need to listen to the people, especially after the American presidential campaign. So it's security, then it is economy, because that's what people are talking about, the standard of living and so on and so forth. Then it's the social welfare. Those are the things that people are focusing on, and that's what I'm going to focus on during the campaign.
As a social liberal, do you have to be careful that you still heave or hove to a conservative agenda, bearing in mind what you've just said? Donald Trump got elected because everybody felt it had gone too far.
Well, I'm a centrist, and of course I will be portrayed, and I've always been portrayed as a guy from the left by the populists. People do not believe in it. I'm a centrist, and of course, I have this great admiration for tradition, for Polish tradition. So I'm able to also speak to the people who vote conservative.
Rafał, although he's considered to be a liberal left-leaning candidate, if you look at a lot of his policies, they're actually centrist conservative. So I don't know if this is why he had a hard time during the election, flip-flopping on the border, not having a real stance in any real policy, and then taking in more migrants, whether they were legal, illegal. There's a quota system through the European Union. A lot of stuff has changed, but I believe this is also one of the issues that hurt him. Number 4, weak stance on immigration and border policies. Number 5, for me, this was a strange one because I believe a little late in his campaign, they decided to dig up dirt on the opposition party, which is Kaczyński, similar to what we saw in the United States, Russian propaganda. I believe his stance late into the campaign going against his political opponent hurt him. Again, this was a party that said peace party, the party in power at the time up until 2 years ago before the parliamentary elections. They basically condemned all the type of actions Peace Party was doing, whether or not in government, whether or not it was through public television. They said they were going to be the different party. And in fact, once Tusk was elected, they actually did the same thing.
Tym razem w tle pojawia się Grand Hotel w Sopocie i wątek ze sprowadzaniem prostytutek. Nowe informacje dotyczące Karola Nawrockiego ujawnili dziennikarze portalu Onet. Andrzej Stankiewicz i Jacek Harłukowicz rozmawiali z ludźmi, którzy znają Nawrockiego, pracowali w Grand Hotelu w Sopocie, byli sopockimi policjantami lub obracali się w trójmiejskim półświadku. Chcą zachować anonimowość, ale biorą odpowiedzialność za swoje słowa, deklarują, że są gotowi złożyć zeznania przed sądem. Miesiące rozmów doprowadziły nas do 2 świadków, których wiarygodność zweryfikowaliśmy. To dawni znajomi Nawrockiego, którzy wspólnie z nim pracowali w ochronie Grand Hotelu. Czytamy w portalu Onet. Dziennikarze rozmawiali między innymi z kolegą Nawrockiego jeszcze z czasów studiów na Uniwersytecie Gdańskim. Byliśmy na tym samym roku. Byliśmy dobrymi kumplami. Przekonuje rozmówca portalu i ujawnia zdumiewające szczegóły. Kiedyś na wieczornej zmianie Karol zapytał mnie, czy nie chce zarobić jakichś dodatkowych pieniędzy, bo on i grupa ludzi z ochrony zarabiają na dostarczaniu prostytutek hotelowym gościom.
So when they start digging up dirt, like saying he's basically, they paint him as a hooligan, which is this he's admitted to. Karol Nawrocki's admitted to having fights. But when they tried to paint him as like some middleman, some broker for prostitutes of a hotel when he was running security. So number 5, this would be for me, the overemphasis of his opponent's scandals. Number 6, and this was a big one also, 100 days, 100 promises. This was first rolled out by Donald Tusk when he was with his party on his parliamentary bid in 2024, 2023, 2024. His coalition, they were promising this on the campaign trail. So after they've had almost 2 years in parliament and have their actual coalition, I think only a fraction of those promises were made. In addition to that, they were also talking about rolling back a lot of the abortion reforms, making them less stringent. In fact, none of those changes have happened whatsoever. So the same policies that the prior political party had, Peace, the Law and Justice Party, the same programs they had in place 2 years ago when they left office, this current political coalition hasn't changed anything. And again, I don't know if this is more against Rafał Trzaskowski or a referendum on Donald Tusk. So again, 100 days, 100 promises. For sure, last year also saw a considerable strengthening of PO, according to the Political Europe poll aggregator. Since January, the party has been consistently ahead of Peace in opinion surveys and currently averaging around 35% compared to 33% of the right wing. So again, very split on both sides, even up until this election, very narrow margin where Nawrocki won. PO promised to implement 100 reforms in his first 100 days in office, but the demagogue website estimates that only 15 of these have fully and further 27 partially realized. So basically, he hasn't done anything. No wonder why he lost. This is what I'm talking about. Number 7, again, this would be another one. This is just my perception. I don't know if it's true. The appearance of outside political influence. The United States has been out in the open here, and it's very crazy to actually see this as an American, how our government was actually out in the open campaigning about who they thought should win.
You have enforced your borders. You have protected who comes into your country, enforced your visa programs. You've done good work to make sure that this country has a different story, but you have much more to do. And you are threatened with a leader who is on the ballot who would take all of that protection away from you, who would open you up to much of the experiences that America had to live through under our last president, Joe Biden. I have watched over the years as socialists and people that are just like this mayor out of Warsaw, that is an absolute train wreck of a leader, have destroyed our countries.
So maybe I've been really naive and in the dark about this, but I had no idea that we would actually go to a country, a foreign country, that's sovereign, and actually openly campaign about who we want to be a victor in their presidential election. That was really crazy for me. I don't really know firsthand if I know anybody that was actually advocating for Rafał Trzaskowski, but I know Barack Obama was here a couple of weeks ago for this Impact Summit. So for me, number 7, I believe, is this perceived foreign influence in Polish elections. That did not go over well. I believe there's a silent majority here that does not like this. And I don't know if it necessarily hurt Rafał, but I don't know if it did him any favors. Number 8 for me, I believe this flip-flopping on abortion policies. As I said in my prior reason, or 2 previous reasons, is that Peace Party, when they left office, they had their stringent abortion ban. By no means can any woman get an abortion here. I don't know if that's true. It's very hard for me to believe that these kind of dystopian laws exist, but I get it that an abortion whatsoever, even if it's under rape, things of this nature, baby deformity, I believe, from what I understand, I could be wrong, so again, somebody fact check me, that stringent rule that was still in place when Peace left office, and then Rafał coming in behind that with this coalition with Donald Tusk, I just don't know if they did much to change that. Now, what I've heard is that he wanted to roll it back to at least 3 weeks, or 3 months, 3 months. So you basically have 12 weeks to get an abortion. He said he was going to do that, again, making these women's rights a little less stringent. What has he done since being the mayor of Warsaw? What have they done since actually having a huge coalition in the parliament? They've done nothing.
Nie można pozbawiać kobiet ich praw. Nie, bo to są... Kobiety są połowa tego narodu, tak? I nagle połowa narodu została sama sobie i pozbawiona praw do decydowania o sobie. Tak nie można.
To jest ten moment, kiedy policja będzie was kusić, handlować, korumpować, namawiać. Tu chodzi o to, żebyśmy zdjęli kar. Tu chodzi o to, żeby nam pokazać, że sami oddajemy własne prawa. Sprzeciwie wobec systemu.
So on one hand, it's very easy to put this guy as a liberal, but if you really look at some of the policies, and I don't know if it's the influence of church in Poland, but in my opinion, he actually governs very conservatively. And if he had won the office, I don't know if Poland would have changed that much. So that would be, for me, another reason why he lost. Number 8, flip-flopping his stance on abortion and women's rights policies. Number 9 for me would be the hypocrisy in media reform. What do I mean by the hypocrisy? When Peace was in power, the Law and Justice Party was in power, they spent a lot of their time criticizing opposition and opposition leadership. When Rafał, or the KO party, became a prominent member in the parliament when Donald Tusk was elected, they said they were going to do these media reforms. And what you can see, once it played out and Peace actually lost the parliamentary seats, or they lost the parliamentary election, KO did the exact same thing they were criticizing their opposition of. So in fact, if you look at Polish media today, public television pretty much 24 hours a day on a loop is critical of Kaczynski, of Peace Party. They're doing everything in their power to try to make them look bad. So in fact, they did a lot of this stuff in campaigning in bad faith, in my opinion. Think Trump in power right now. Imagine the CNN and the MSNBC. Right now, the current Polish media is doing the same thing it accuses opposition of. Bashing the opposition 24 hours a day, critical, tons of scrutiny. And I think over a period of time, people can become really fatigued of that, and people tend to lose interest. So that would be, for me, number 9, the hypocrisy in media reform. Last but not least, for me, number 10, I believe the rise of Sławomir Mencen. Before Konfederacja was a party that was to be taken seriously, it was under the guy named Mike. I forget his first name, but I know his last name is Mike. He stepped down then as a leader, or one of the representatives, the main representatives of this party, Konfederacja. And I believe what Sławomir Mencen has done, he's kind of invigorated or reinvigorated the base of the party. He has very clear and consistent ideas. This is the guy I'm talking about right here. This is Sławomir Mencen. Polish opposition presidential candidate signs far-right leaders' list of demands. This man has a list of demands. I believe the only thing I've seen similar to this might be when Karl Rove had the Republican candidate sign some type of declaration. This is the Trojan horse. This is going to be the star here. I would say in the next upcoming election, maybe even in the parliamentary elections. Conservative opposition presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki has signed a set of 8 pledges proposed by his eliminated far-right rival Sławomir Mencen. In the first round of the election held last Sunday, that was 2 weeks ago, this article is not too old, Rafał Trzaskowski, the candidate of Poland's main ruling group, the centrist KO Civic Coalition, finished with 31%. He was closely followed by Nawrocki, in the opposition, 29.54. Again, these two candidates on their own are really close. That meant that the pair proceed to a second round runoff, June 1st, which just happened yesterday, ahead of which they are seeking to win the support of those who voted for the eliminated rivals, in particular Mencen, who finished third with 14.8%. Let's look at this graphic right here, if you can see this. So this is Trzaskowski 2 weeks ago. Now Nawrocki is right behind him. So he's almost at 30%. This guy is just over 30%. This guy, Sławomir Mencen, when they were talking about the Konfederacja Party, he was at about 4 or 6%. And they were like, there's no way he's going to gain any traction. He went up in those 2 years. He's jumped up basically 10 points. This is the pledge. He asked the candidates to declare, I will not sign any bill that increases existing taxes, contributions, fees, or introduces new fiscal burdens. I will not sign any law restricting cash circulation. I will protect the Polish zloty. I believe very important if you compare it to the euro. I will not sign any law restricting the freedom of expressed views that are consistent with Polish constitution. So he's talking again, freedom of speech. We can see the suppression of that in certain countries. In the UK, they're very strict on X and freedom of speech. I would not allow Polish soldiers to be sent to Ukrainian territory. I would not sign a law on ratification on Ukraine's accession into NATO. So Ukraine stays sovereign, be on your own. We're not going to finance you. We're not going to protect you. I would not sign any law limiting Poles' access to weapons. I will not agree to transfer any competencies of the authorities of the Republic of Poland to the bodies of the European Union. So he's basically saying, hey, we're not going to do this one-size-fits-all thing because what they're doing over there in Brussels has nothing to do with us. But that's actually a part of being in the EU, so that's the downside of the European Union. I would not sign the ratification of any new EU treaties that weakens Poland's role by weakening its voting power or taking away the right to veto. Very common sense stuff. So this right here, this candidate is considered to be radical far right. And when I look at these 8 issues that he's brought up, in fact, they're just very conservative. He has very clear and consistent ideas. I'm not saying he's more of a capitalist, but he has said some things on a podcast where they've asked him a question like, what is his vision of an ideal Poland? He said something like the privatization of medical care, privatization of universities. He's into guns and weapons, so he kind of wants America 2.0. He wants everything to be privatized. From what I understand of this guy, he's basically into economics. I believe he's a tax attorney and has his own business or many businesses or several businesses. So I think the Trojan horse, Sławomir Mencen, is going to be a big problem moving forward across the board for all the coalition, because what he's doing is he's bringing in young male voters, and I even know a few clients who are female in a much older age demographic, and they've even converted over to Sławomir Mencen. I think the consistency he has, straightforward ideas, straightforward policies, at least you know where he stands. And I think that was one of the most attractive things for Americans about Donald Trump. Straightforward, never really faltering on his messaging. That's exactly what I would say about Sławomir Mencen. So those are my opinions. Those are my 10 reasons why I believe he lost the election. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know if I'm on point, off point, if I've totally missed it. This is Mike. See you on the next one. Cześć.